Nothing quite like procrastinating until the last minute. New Year's Eve is here, and yes, I have to do my countdown of my favorites from 2023. I resist doing these, or I delay them. I procrastinate on them because I'm always thinking I'm going to listen to something at the end of the year that's going to totally rock my world, and I'm going to want to change my order of my top 10. That didn't really happen this year. There's a ton of stuff that I'm interested in. It's just some things just haven't clicked or haven't spent the proper time with it. So my top 10 definitely consists of things that I've lived with for a little while, with maybe one exception. But these are my favorite top 10 albums, new albums that came out in 2023. At number 10, almost didn't make the list. It's definitely not her best record, but there's a certain vibe to it that you can't find really in any of her other records that I really like. And this is Lucinda Williams, her last album, Rock and Roll Heart. The songwriting is kind of light. I mean, there's some heavy moments on here. Don't get me wrong, like the jukebox and stolen moments, and what was the one about Bob Stinson, Hums Liquor. But it's a little more like a bar band, kind of just a rock record. She's got Springsteen singing on a couple cuts. It just it plays like a less depressing, not as serious of a Lucinda Williams record. You could put this one on at a party, and it would probably work. It's just a different kind of vibe, and I think she wanted to do that. I could totally see this working really well live. I think she's earned the right to do whatever the hell she wants, and this is after her stroke that she had. And her voice, honestly, has never sounded better. It hasn't sounded better in years. I mean, maybe if you go back to Car Wheels, but she really, really sounds good on this record. I don't know what she's doing differently. She's commented on it too, but her voice is incredibly strong on this record. So, Cindy Williams, Rock and Roll Heart, that is my number 10. And there is carpeting on the floor. I'm not like abusing my records or anything. I'm trying to set them down fairly gently here. At number 9 for me, it was kind of a surprise. I'm a huge Replacements fan, but I haven't really followed Tommy Stinson that closely. I've seen him live a couple times in Minneapolis. I saw him a lot early on, I should say. I saw him with Perfect several times, and I loved that band, and was really looking forward to them doing something. And then it all kind of collapsed. He just put out an EP, and by the time the long player, the LP actually came out, I'd kind of lost interest to some extent. And his solo stuff never really grabbed me. And some solo shows that I saw, especially when I lived in Minneapolis, just were not that memorable. Um, but I was pleasantly surprised with this record he did. It's a collaboration with his brother-in-law or ex-brother-in-law, and it's called Cowboys in the Campfire. Yeah, he signed that one for me. Saw him in a really small place. Really, really, really like good album. It's him much more stripped down. There's like bass and a pedal steel guitar, and that's kind of it. Steel guitars, bass. I don't think there's any drums on this record. Oh, I guess there is some, but it really worked live. Maybe I'm confusing it with seeing him live too, because I did see him live on this tour, and it was him and Skip. Skip's the other guy, and it just was just kind of what I want Tommy Stinson to be doing at this stage in his life. He's writing really honest, interesting songs and performing them in a more stripped down, more organic way. And for me, I don't know, I get a little tired of seeing, I guess, former rock stars try to reclaim their youth or something, get up there with really loud guitars and try to be something that maybe they're not anymore. And maybe that sounds really harsh, but I definitely like this new direction for Tommy, and I hope he continues in it. I think there's some real magic there. Who knows, maybe they wrote a bunch of songs together. But yeah, that's Cowboys in the Campfire, Tommy Stinson. The next record is by a band that I'm definitely familiar with. I saw them a couple times back in the early to mid 2000s. A band out of the UK called The Clientele. Strange Geometry was the album I remember probably playing the most. When Kay Got Over Me is the song I remember the most. I hadn't really followed them, didn't really know they were putting out new music. Then they came out with this album called I'm Not There Anymore, and it just kind of wowed me, kind of blew me away. Not so much that it's reclaiming the way that The Clientele sound. I'm more intrigued that they're kind of trying a bunch of new things. Apparently, they discovered computers and what you can do with computers. They'd never done that before, and they use it to really good effect. It's a sprawling record. It's one I've played and just kind of let play and kind of done other things. I haven't dived into it quite as much as I want to. There's plenty there more for me to discover. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I'm Not There Anymore by The Clientele. That is my number 8. At number 7 is an album by a band, one of my favorite bands, been around since the mid 90s, and we're in another. The main guy was in another band before that we all know is Uncle Tupelo. It shouldn't come as any surprise that I have this on my list. It is Wilco, their last album, Cousin. I didn't know what to make of this. First of all, I love Cruel Country. I think Cruel Country is one of their best records. It's way up there for me. Best album since at least The Whole Love, probably Ghost Is Born. It took me a while to get into it. I love the mood it sets. It doesn't change. It fluctuates. There's different styles in there, but it really sets a tone. It's just a great record to throw on a Sunday afternoon or anytime, really, when you're just kind of in more of a mellow mood. It's their version of country, and I think it works masterfully. So, I was a little intrigued by this record that they had supposedly recorded or started recording before Cruel Country and then put it down to focus on the songs on Cruel Country because they could finally all sit in the same room together, and they took advantage of that. This is after COVID, right, when things let up a little bit. They could finally sit in the same room together, and they took advantage of that and created this really organic record. This album is the album that they're originally going to work on, and it is I think was primarily written around the time of Ode to Joy, and it sounds like it. I'm not crazy about the lyrics in here. I'm not crazy about the subject matter. It seems like a kind of subject matter that's been kind of traveled a lot by Jeff Tweedy. It seems like this anxiety about relationships and his wife, and so glad he has her and doesn't want to lose her. And I sound like a jerk. I admire Tweedy for writing about his family. I really do. I think it's a really tender thing that he does. But I just don't think he broke much new ground on here, song wise. If you just took these songs, but production wise and sound wise, as far as like the sound of this thing, I think it's really cool, and it's grown on me quite a bit. At my first couple listens, I didn't really care for it. The last time I put on, I quite liked it. So that is Wilco. That is my number 6. Number 7, rather. I should really have spelled out on my little cheat sheet here what number these are rather than just the order, because I clearly can't do math and talk at the same time. Number 6 on my list is, we got 2 albums by them this year. Their lead singer had a bout of anxiety or depression and couldn't really write lyrics, and it just felt like it dried up for him. And then he came back kind of with a vengeance. They put out this album, First 2 Pages of Frankenstein. It's a national. I really like this one. I got into this one more than I did Laugh Track. I haven't spent as much time with Laugh Track. Laugh Track to me always sounds good when I hear it. This one, I've done the whole like sit down between 2 speakers and really get into it. And it was kind of a slow burn for me, but I really like it. I think it's got some really sharp songwriting in it, especially the first side of it. And it's just nice to have them back. The one thing that I didn't like about it is like, where's Brian? Their drummers, like their secret weapon. You can identify a national song by the drums as much as you can the voice, which is kind of rare. And here it's a lot of pre-programmed stuff and loops and stuff like that. And on Laugh Track, the companion album, they got back to kind of, he's more in the band as a live drummer. I'm sure he was still involved in this record, but on Laugh Track, he's there as more of a live drummer. But you maybe you count them together and count them as number 6. But yeah, this one's the one I do like better. First 2 Pages of Frankenstein. My shirt, It's the Music, Stupid, is something Mazzy likes to say. I got this from Mazzy, and this is all about the music. I should mention that in case people are guessing what kind of shirt I'm wearing. Number 5 for me is a record that kind of blew me away from the first note. Just the first few lines she sings of Dylan songs, I was completely taken away. Like my breath was kind of taken away by the beauty of it, and it continues to deliver. I love the packaging of this one too. This is Cat Power sings Dylan. There's all the lyrics in here. It's a gatefold. I love gatefolds when they give you information. I'm way less interested in gatefolds when it's just some artwork that maybe isn't that interesting. It just seems like kind of a waste of space. I'm a liner notes guy. I love to dive in and read things. And this album, I love. I love that. At first, I kind of rolled my eyes at the concept. You're going to take that legendary concert that Bob Dylan did, the Royal Albert Hall concert, even though it was recorded in Manchester, and you're going to redo it note for note, song by song. I don't know, just didn't sound that interesting to me. Although tend to love her covers records. She is masterful at this, though. I love the way that she phrases things. She draws me into Dylan songs in a way that I haven't been drawn in a while, and I think it's because of the phrasing. It's a new approach. It gets you. I mean, how many? We all know if you're watching this channel, chances are you're a huge Dylan fan, or you're at least a moderate Dylan fan. Um, we all respect him as a songwriter, but how many times does it sound kind of new to you? And that's what happens with this. It's like maybe songs that I've taken for granted or thought I knew, and I just hear in a different way. And she brings it home with this freshness and beauty that I absolutely love. More partial to the acoustic side. I was kind of thinking maybe the electric side wouldn't work. I like that too, though. She does a really good job. She seems to make it a little bit more her own on the electric side. It's a faithful rendition to the concert, but she's clearly put her stamp on things. But I could not recommend this high enough. I suppose I can move it up on my list, um, Kapar Sings Dylan is a really really good record, and that is my number 5. At number 4 for me is a record by an artist I've always loved. I was huge into him in college. I discovered him. It's interesting how radio works, and when you're a kid or whatever. I discovered Peter Gabriel way, way, way before I knew he was in a band called Genesis, and I knew of Genesis too, probably through Phil Collins solo records. But yeah, kind of interesting. It was kind of a shock for me. Like, he was in Genesis. What? I love Peter Gabriel. The album that I got into the most was probably his third record. I love the Smashing the Tree compilation. I loved Us a lot. I loved Us when it came out. I really, really got into it. Waited a long time for the follow up, which didn't do much for me, to be honest. We had The Last Temptation of Christ was in there too, and he keeps delivering with some soundtrack work and covers records. Scratch My Back, I'll Scratch Yours. But it's been an awful long time since we've gotten a new record from him. We even knew this title for, it seems like, years, I.O. And we finally have it. Although we don't really have it. We have 2 versions of it, and now we're supposed to decide which $40+ version we're going to buy, which I have not decided. I think I'm probably going to get them both at some point. Wait till the price drops. I'm sure it will. But they're both really good. I have a hard time telling that much of a difference between them. It seems like the bass is way prominent on the dark mix, which I do like. But I've listened to both. I listened to the dark mix almost exclusively for a while, and thought, okay, for sure that's the one. And then I put on the bright mix, and I was like, oh, this sounds kind of good too. Whatever. He's indecisive. He waits forever. He finally settles on a track list, but he can't settle on a mix. Whatever. I should stop bitching. I wish if he did that the mixes were drastically different. Whatever. Let's talk about the music. The music is great. It's what Peter Gabriel does best. It is like getting back to just not trying to maybe break new ground sonically that he's done before. I mean, Peter Gabriel 3 or the 4th record, or getting into more world sounds with some of his real world artists work, on his records, and certainly the Passion soundtrack. But this is just him doing service to these songs in a really, really good way. And the songs are really good. I mean, yeah, it's got a bit of mortality going on. But it's not like a downer, like I don't know, Time Out of Mind or something, which I love. But it's not that serious of a record. It still kind of feels like his version of a pop record. And it is interesting to think, like, if this came out in I don't know, 92, if this was instead of Us, how would this fare? I mean, it seems like we're over the days that this kind of music would break the top 40 hits, right? It's a different time. But would this have at the time? I think it probably would have. I think there's several strong songs on here. But yeah, I really like I.O., and it's just going to be one that I listen to more and more, and I'm sure I'll take a deeper dive into it when I pull the trigger on it. Number 4 is by a guy that I have really respected as a songwriter, going back to his days in a little band called the Drive-By Truckers. not a founding member, a guy that joined. He was known as a brilliant guitar player. They started to blow up a Southern rock opera, and they recruited him to join the band for that record. He started writing songs and contributing as a songwriter with the album after that. And I think he was on 3 different records: Decoration Day, Dirty South, and A Blessing and a Curse, before they kind of had a falling out. And it was probably a lot to do with his drinking and some problems he had. And he went solo, and his records were they had highlights. They were, I mean, Decoration Day off the first one was great, but I kind of almost stopped paying attention. I always liked him, but the new stuff wasn't what I went to the show to hear. It was the old stuff. And I remember seeing him in 2012, and he absolutely blew me away in the summer. I'm like, something changed with this guy. Found out later he got sober. He married Amanda Shires. He put out one of my favorite records, Decoration Day, and has put out 4 records. I think there's a 4th one since then. They're all pretty good. Some are a little uneven. If you put together, none of them rival Southeastern, but you could definitely put together 10 tracks from those 4 records, including the one I'm going to talk about, and it would probably stand up to Southeastern. He writes some absolutely brilliant material. But his 4th one, I think this one, and it's weird. I always think they started over with Southeastern, even though I think he has 3 solo records before that too. But yeah, my favorite record of his since Southeastern is Weather Vanes. Weather Vanes. This came out this year. It's packaging is really nice. Gatefold, bunch of studio shots. It with the exception of maybe the first song, Death Wish, that didn't really do anything for me when I heard it as a single, and works a little bit better on the record, but not crazy about. But King of Oklahoma, the sound of this thing is just more organic. I didn't like the 80s sound that he had on the last record. I didn't, just the production choices on it, I did not like at all. I don't know if he's trying to do a retro thing, but this one just sounds really organic and good. The band sounds really good, and I'm more of a singer-songwriter fan, a fan of him from that kind of side of things than I am necessarily a full band. But boy, they sound good on here, and I wouldn't change a thing. Strawberry Woman, Cast Iron Skillet, just like right up there with Outfit, just really capturing something profound lyrically that yeah, the few artists could capture, and maybe something that is sort of timeless about a certain regions of the country. I absolutely love the last song on here. I like Miles. I'm just, whoa, where'd this come from? I just love all the guitar work in there, the way it like builds up the song. And if that's a direction that they would continue in, or he would continue in, I would be absolutely thrilled. Like I said, I'm normally a fan of the more stripped down stuff, but my God, if that's whatever they're doing there, I absolutely love. So that's my number 3, Jason Isbell. Number 2 is probably, maybe might get some eye rolls. I don't know why. I guess when you're a legend, when you've done it all, when you've put out records that are some of the best records that have ever been made, and you belong to memories of so many people's experiences, listening to those records, seeing them live, it can be hard to listen to new stuff. I never ever thought in my life that I would hear a really good, a very, very strong Rolling Stones record, and I did this year with Hackney Diamonds. I love this record. I think this record is great. It's a great rock record. It sounds vital. It sounds like the band means business. And hey, honestly, I was a guy that was like, okay, Charlie Watts died. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's time to really call it quits on the Rolling Stones. It's getting kind of ridiculous. I was that guy. No, not anymore. Not anymore. I'm like, what do you have next? Do you have another record in you? Because you are clearly on fire in a way you haven't been on fire since I was like 2 on this record. And it's great. It's probably the best since, let's just say, I think I said this in my review earlier video I did, that I think this is as good, if not better, than Black and Blue or It's Only Rock and Roll, and those were put out in the mid 70s. Is it as good as Some Girls? Maybe not, probably not, but might be their best record since then. Hackney Diamonds. Number 1. Ooh, it sounded like I abused that record. I swear I didn't, though. Pretty careful. Number 1 for me is a record that I don't think has gotten I haven't seen on anybody's top 10 list or Not just on YouTube. I mean, like magazines, Pitchfork, whatever you want to look at that counts down records. I really haven't seen this one, and I'm a little surprised and a little bummed out because I guess I hoped that it would gain more of traction or be more of a um, get more notice. Maybe bring the guy to attention again, because I know also there was some sort of, I think, project tribute album that was in the works, and maybe reissues of other things. And if they were testing the market with this record, who knows when those reissues are going to come. But this is a record by Sparkle Horse that I never thought we were going to get. Bird Machine. Mark Linkhouse passed away in I think it was like 2000. I'll look it up. I'll post the date above me, but it was a while ago. And it kind of hit me. I mean, anytime like one of my favorite artists, especially if they do it them, they kill themselves. Just really, I have a real hard time with it. Sometimes, very very hard time. I used to be a pretty big Nirvana fan. I kind of stopped listening after Cobain. I kind of did. I just did. I couldn't go there for a long time. The records were just too dark, and I worried maybe a little bit about that with this new Sparkle Horse record. This was put together, basically his brother and his brother's wife were kind of involved in his music at various times, but they found all these master tapes they did not know existed. They recruited a lot of people that worked with him before, producers, and they went in and they just faithfully tried to finish these songs and put together the best record that they could with this material, following his guidance. And I guess he'd left a lot of notes. He had running track listings. It just it warms my heart. It doesn't bum me out. There's so much beauty in this album, and it's such a nice reminder of who Mark Linkhouse is, who Sparkle Horse was, and just the power of music and the beauty of life. I mean, he captures that, even though these are stark songs, some of them, and he's maybe thinking about some very unpleasant things. I don't see that here. It's I think it's a really good record. I cannot recommend it high enough for people to give it a chance and listen to it, especially if you're a Sparkle Horse fan. But even if you're not, it's interesting for one, putting together material after somebody's passed away. But it's just also nice to not be bummed out by a posthumous release, and instead find so much joy in it. And that is exactly what I found in Bird Machine by Sparkle Horse. Okay, so that's my top 10 records I listen to. There's many others that people have kind of turned me on to, that I also enjoyed this year. Several that I'll be picking up on vinyl, probably diving into more, and maybe get turned on to more and mention in some future videos. I did want to mention a couple other things on my favorite list here. My favorite single was by Vampire Weekend. They are my favorite American rock and roll band now that's making music. A new band in the last, like, let's just say my favorite new American rock and roll band. Newish. They've been around for, I guess, maybe it's at least 10 years. I think the first albums came out around 2010, 11. I'll have to go check that. But great band, super talented, super interesting. The music's kind of very distinct, and sometimes it can just flat out rock, which it does in Vampire Weekend. Strong lyrics too. I wanted more of it. I'm like, oh my god, if this is your single off a new record, holy crap, sign me up. Unfortunately, it's not. It sounds like they're going to take a break for a while, and their singer Adrienne Linker is going to do her own solo record, another one, which I'm looking forward to as well. I loved her last one, songs and instrumentals. But if I had to pick a single for the year, it is Vampire Empire by Big Thief. Favorite show that I saw last year? I think it might be Bill Callahan, just because it was such a unique experience to see him. I'm kind of a latecomer to Smog and Bill Callahan, and I got to see him in Mill Valley, California, at a really small place off the Dream River tour, or shortly after that. I think he took some time off, but I've gotten into the last few records he's put out quite a bit, especially Gold Record, and it was just a real treat to see him. So that ranks way up there. Also, it was a real treat to see Neil Young. We splurged for some nice tickets. We were up very close. My girlfriend had never seen him before. and he put on a hell of a show, playing a lot of stuff he hadn't played before. A lot of it you can hear on this new record, before and after that he put out. It's pretty much a live record, except the audiences are moved, or at least that's my understanding. And one of the songs was recorded at the show we saw. But yeah, that was way up there. I love that he did on the beach material, and also a lot of stuff off Sleeps with Angels. But yeah, between those two, probably at my top for shows of the year. Best reissue for me from 2023. If you call it a reissue, I think I prefer box set on this, because it's not just like a standard reissue. It's a package. It's a thing. It's different. And that is the Replacements. Tim, the Let It Bleed version. Let It Bleed was a working title, or something that Westerberg had mentioned. They called the album before it Let It Be, and they were joking around about calling album number 5. I always say that because I consider it a stinking album. They were going to call it Let It Bleed. This is going back and getting those original multi-track recordings, and getting Ed Stasium, who usually worked with Tommy, I forget his last name, Tommy Ramone, who produced this record. They usually worked hand in hand, and getting Ed to go back and come in and play around with these tapes and remix it the way he wanted it. Holy crap. It just, it doesn't sound tinny anymore. It doesn't sound thin. It sounds absolutely incredible, and to me it is a must have. And there are plenty of extras on here too. I mean, you have the regular version of Tim that's been remastered, which I honestly haven't listened to yet. And then you've got a live and unreleased one, which is great, and also have a live concert from 1986, which is pretty good too. But you'll get it for that new version of Tim. It is incredible. It will have you appreciating Westerberg's lyrics in a whole different way if you haven't heard this already. But I have heard that you should get it now, because they're not making any more. And this comes from the head of, or Jason from Rhino, who was heavily involved in this. So yeah, if you're kind of waiting on getting this, I wouldn't wait any longer. I would pick it up. And of all the box sets, the Don't Tell a Soul one is brilliant too, but I think this is the holy grail so far. Tim, the Let It Bleed edition. What a band, what a record. This record now is probably their best. I used to always think it was the album with the best songs, and that was it. And now I might call it just their best record, period. But anyway, that's my list. 2023, a pretty good year. Definitely looking forward to 2024. Really appreciate everybody watching this channel. I started it about a year ago. And that was when probably January is when I really started getting going with it. I wanted to do at least one video a week, and I think I've definitely done more than that. And I wanted to get to 500 subscribers, and I'm at something like 850 now. So it exceeded my expectations. I really enjoy it, actually. I like talking to people. I like reading the comments. It's good for me. It keeps me engaged with music. I can talk about it with people that I wouldn't normally be able to talk about it with, and I love to talk about it. So I'm going to keep doing it. Expect some interesting surprises maybe in the new year. I'm going to try a few different things, but I want to wish everybody a very, very happy 2024.